bit tough to live up to that introduction, but anyhow. Um, I normally prefer to have conversations, so bear with me if I stumble a bit. Um, 9 years ago, I was taking a train journey from London to Glasgow to do a composition residency. And on the way, the train stopped at a station called Berwick-upon-Tweed. We approached the town over this very impressive viaduct, and I saw this medieval walled town built alongside an estuary with a river that ran from far inland right along the walls of the town and then emptied out into the North Sea. So I jumped from my seat and I asked a fellow passenger, "What's the name of this town?" And I knew right then and there that I'd fallen in love with an estuary and the town. And the reason it was important was because at the time I was collaborating with a filmmaker on the idea of making a film with music inspired by estuaries. So fast forward now 5 years, and I meet this lovely pianist and vocal coach, Ian Shaw. And in the course of conversation, he says to me, "So what projects are you working on now?" And I say, "I'm working on a creation inspired by estuaries." And he says, "Oh, I have a house in Berwick-upon-Tweed. You're very welcome to go and stay there if you'd like." So of course I go up with the filmmaker, fall in love even more with the estuary, with the town, with the people that we meet, the spirit of this place. And at the same time, I'm also uncomfortable because I realize the way that we're thinking about this film and music in no way reflects the wider picture that this estuary can possibly reflect. So the collaboration breaks up, we each go our own way, and I then team up with an old friend who's a theater producer, Steve Harris. So Steve asked me loads of questions to help me try and reconnect with what I'm trying to express with this idea of estuaries. And we start off first by reminding ourselves of what an estuary is. An estuary is a dynamic ecosystem formed where fresh water from rivers and streams flows out to the open sea. The sea enters the estuary with the rhythm of the tides, and that mix of waters provides high levels of nutrients, making estuaries the most productive, biodiverse environments in the world. Then he asked me to try and describe this project. And we realized that as I'm talking about it, what I'm actually describing is the ritual that I grew up with here in Trinidad. This is a ritual that has shaped my fundamental belief in music as a dynamic vehicle for connecting us all together. And what I remember about Carnival, at the time when I was a teenager growing up in the 60s and 70s, is that I felt safe walking everywhere in Port-of-Spain. What sets that period of the year apart from the rest of the year is that huge swathes of the country are brought together in music on the streets. And suddenly, over 2 days, we all got a glimpse of each other, and we all saw how we could move together in music. We saw the very best of our creative powers in the costume bands that were on the streets, and in thousands of steel band players that were playing pan. So what does Carnival have to do with the last town in England before Scotland? And why is the estuary important? Creating this project has revealed a lot of questions that I had in myself about music making, connecting music to something that's much bigger than myself. It's also answered a question that I've been posing in the process of creating this project. And that's about how can I use music as a force for creative regeneration and reconnection with our natural environments, our cultures, our past, our present, and the very best within ourselves. And equally importantly, the estuary has become the metaphor for the process of creating the project. So now the web of human connection starts to flow. Suddenly I meet people who are somehow personally or professionally connected to Berwick. First person who comes on board and who is now a key member of the creative team is Susan Ben. She's like a human estuary. She creates the right environment for artists to make their work by creating labs for them and by asking two simple questions. What do you want to do, and what do you need to do it? My next door neighbor, Kate Theophilus, comes on board as a creative producer. She discovers that she's connected to Susan. Susan, Kate, and I go up to Berwick to start meeting with people. And I end up staying in a bed and breakfast that's run by a lovely couple, Ian and Diana. It turns out that Ian is a geologist and a musician, and his wife, Diana, is a music educator and musician. They both connect us to about 6 to 8 music groups in Berwick. We meet the artistic director of the Arts Centre in Berwick, the Maltings. Matthew Rook knows Trinidad, he knows Jamaica. We have lots of people in common. We've written music for the same theatre companies, but we discover this when we meet each other for the first time in Berwick. He also hands me the key to a treasure chest in his theatre. In the basement of his theatre, he's storing the music archive that is integral to the regiment, that is integral to the history of Berwick-upon-Tweed. This is the music archive of the King's Own Scottish Borderers Regiment. Turns out the King's Own Scottish Borderers Regiment was also active in the Caribbean in the 18th and 19th centuries. He also introduces us to the town archivist, the town historian, and to two people who have created this incredible art gallery. Kate Stevenson and Michael Richardson have created an independent art gallery in Berwick, which is a space for people from Berwick to meet each other, to be exposed to artworks of all sorts of levels, including international level, and to feel equal to everyone. It's a space in which they encourage young people to come, share their ideas, share their works, and be exposed to other people. So they welcome us with open arms, and they immediately connect us to aspiring filmmakers and musicians. So all of us now are pooling our ideas, sharing thoughts about what the project will be. Kate and I discover a lot about Berwick. We discover the extent to which many Berwickers feel that the town has been neglected for many years, that it's a town through which people just pass, nobody stops. Some of the young people feel as if nothing good comes out of Berwick, or nothing of value, or nothing of note comes out of Berwick. What we become aware of is that our project brings all of these disparate groups together and gets people from either side of the bridge talking and working and creating together. So we're all refining the project. Kate and I spend a year defining it, filling in forms, submitting hefty applications, building relationships with people in Berwick, in Newcastle, in London. We get the responses back from the applications. Every single one of them are rejected. And that's where I get inspiration from Derek Walcott's Nobel lecture in 1992. He says, "Break a vase, and the love that reassembles the fragments is greater than that love which took its symmetry for granted when it was whole. Antillean art is a restoration of our shattered histories, our shards of vocabulary, our archipelago becoming a synonym for pieces broken off from the original continent." So I start back work on the project. And at the same time, something that I'm reading suddenly hits me. In his essay, A Room and a Half, the Russian poet and essayist Joseph Brodsky says, "I know I shouldn't equate the state with language, but it was in Russian that two old people, shuffling through numerous ministries and chancelleries in the hope of obtaining a permit to visit their only son abroad before they died, were told repeatedly for 12 years in a row that the state considered such a visit unpurposeful. And suddenly, why I'm doing this project hits me. 9 years ago, my parents were held up at gunpoint by men who boasted of the murders that they had committed. They were very lucky to escape traumatized but unhurt. Because I lived far away, I was filled with this sense of impotence and rage that was very quickly mutating into hatred of my country. And without me even being aware of it, somehow this toxic emotion that I had within me was being transformed into a creative process that allowed me to preserve and to spread the very best of my country and my culture. Falling in love with the Estuary and with Berwick brought me to a place of peace within myself about my country and allowed me to see the vast wealth of possibilities contained in just two small things that are integral to me: my music and my culture. It's sad that the metaphoric estuary has become polluted. Our great carnival maker, Peter Minshall, described it very well in his carnival band, The River. But the music that evolved through carnival was a force, a transformative force for invention, creation, and cohesion. It saw the birth of the steel pan, an instrument that now exists worldwide. Cohesion in that it brought and continues to bring people from all sorts of communities together to learn and play music of all sorts, by ear and by heart. Invention in the calypso that emerged, whose social and political commentary was crafted with wit and genius, uniting us all in song, stimulating thought, and commentary. Genius through the genius band leaders that we see spinning gold out of tin and bamboo, aided by thousands of helping hands, all working to make their band the best band. And this is what I want to spread in Berwick, that sense of working together. So connecting Carnival to Berwick is about regenerating our common humanity. It's about embracing, celebrating our diversity. In the last verses of his poem, Ithaca, Constantine Cavafy says, "Have Ithaca always in your mind. Your arrival there is what you were destined for, but don't in the least hurry the journey. Better you're old when you reach the island, rich with all you've experienced along the way. Not expecting Ithaca to give you wealth, Ithaca gave you a splendid journey. Without her, you wouldn't have set out. She has nothing else to give you. And if you find her poor, she hasn't deceived you. So wise you have become, of such experience that already you'll have understood what these Ithacas mean." Right now, we have quite a way to go in raising all of the funding for the rest of the project. But we're finally off to a very good start in that we now have commitment from the town of Berwick. As of a few weeks ago, we have commitment from one of our main funders in Berwick and in England. And I just got the news this morning that the Arts Council of England have finally decided to fund the production company that I set up with the co-artistic director. That's it. Thank you.